Hello, today I'm gonna show you a quick overview of the TeselaGen Build Module. The Build Module works as a software to automate lab work and also acts like a fully fledged LIMS system. So basically everything from inventory, locations, workflow, data gathering, everything can be done through the Build Module. And also it works very well, of course, with the whole TeselaGen suite. So you can use it as a standalone platform, but also you can use it in conjunction with the design module and the discover module. So I'm going to start showing the basics of the build module, and then I'm gonna go into more details on some specifics, interesting parts. But have in mind that this is a general overview. There's a bunch more that can be done, but the idea is the idea is that you can have like a general idea of how this works. So on the left side we have our module switchers. This allows us to switch to other TeselaGen modules if enabled. On the top we have our lab selector and a bunch of the different unique menu items for the build module. So as you can see, you have a menu for workflows, another for materials, inventory, data, tools, the Bioshop, and a task menu that shows any tasks that are running on the background. So for starting, you can create lab groups. So lab groups act as siloed, distinct instances of the platform for work that must be isolated for security or intellectual property reasons. Normally, most companies start with a single lab group and add distinct labs only as the need arises. One common example might be different academic labs within a single department. Another might be different groups within a larger company that must work on distinctly different projects for customers that require data isolation and security. And to configure this, you will go into the settings menu on the right. You will scroll down, go into lab groups, and just create a new lab group. And in the lab group you can add different users or members that will have access to the data in that lab group. Now I'm gonna show you the inventory management aspects of the platform. So as I mentioned before, this is a fully fledged lab information and inventory management system. So I'm gonna come into the inventory. As you see, there's a bunch of things that can be managed directly from here, like samples, aliquots, reagents, plates. You have locations, equipment, container, and placement strategies, etc. I'm gonna show you how aliquots look like in this demo. So the aliquots, all of the items in this menu will look like this. So it's basically a big table where you have a search bar that allows you to search in the inventory quickly and very easily, and then you have the information of what's on inventory. These are all of the aliquots that are in this lab. You can see for some that we have in the inventory, we have the volume, the concentration, what's the sample that's in this aliquot, and the location. It might be on a fridge, on a shelf, anywhere. And if we click, let's open this one here, and you can see it will highlight the aliquot that we have selected. So it's this well in this plate. It will say which is the plate that is selected, the location, in this case it's in this in this shelf, the material and sample that's contained in it, and a bunch of other important information. You can, if you scroll down, you can see all of this, what's in this aliquot. So you have we have a sequence here that we could quickly open it on the vector viewer, and we can inspect the sample that we have in that aliquot. And then you have a bunch of other things that you can manage in the aliquots of your inventory. So if I'm here, I can also go into this plate. So if I press here, I'm gonna jump into the plate. The great thing about the TeselaGen Build Module is that everything is connected, everything is linked. So you can look for the plates, or you have your aliquots, and you can open the plate and then navigate into the aliquots, or you can go into your shelves or freezers and then look for the plate, or you can go directly to the aliquots. So everything is connected. And as you can see here in this plate, which is a plate that has PCR primers for a combinatorial golden gate example that we have set up here, you can see the content of this plate here, and also supports, you can see that here TeselaGen supports barcoding. So you can print the label for your printer, for your plate that your printer can detect, and we are fully integrated. We fully work with any labeling system that you might have on your lab. Let me open one of the samples here to show you how you can go deeper. So here we have this sample, and it says where you can find this sample. So this sample, we have it in this aliquot, and you can see how is everything linked to the sample here. So I'm gonna go back to the inventory view, to the aliquots, and I'm gonna show you that you can also quickly click here, and on the right side we can display a summary of the information in that record that we have in the build module. So here we have basically the same information that we saw previously. Everything is condensed here quick, so you can have quick access to that information. So that's regarding on inventory management. Of course, you have, as I mentioned before, you have a freezer management. You can track reagents. You can track if reagents are gonna expiration dates for reagents, and anything that's needed when you are using a proper lab inventory and information management system. So now I'm gonna go into what we call the workflows. The workflows allows to basically automate processes and workflows that you and your team are running in the lab. Here I'm gonna show you a very simple workflow that it's connected with what we previously did in design. So in design we created a combinatorial golden gate DNA library that has like 8 constructs. So we're gonna run here as part of the demo. We're gonna quickly run this simple workflow to assemble those constructs in our lab. So we will come here, new workflow run. We would name it as demo workflow run, and we're gonna select what kind of workflow we're gonna run. For this case, we're gonna run a PCR, DNA assembly, and ordering workflow. So I'm gonna click there because I don't want to create a job for this demo, and I'm gonna launch a workflow. So here you can see that we have our workflow view. On the left side, we have each steps of the workflow. So all of these steps are gonna be run receiving inputs from the previous steps, so we can at the end have a work list for assembling our DNA constructs in the lab. The logic here is that there's a lot of work that's done by this task, and after that work is done, a work list will be automatically generated that you can execute it manually, or if you have any kind of liquid handling equipment or robots in your lab, you can export it for that equipment. We support a bunch of them, and we keep adding, and if needed we can easily add more lab equipment. But some of the ones that we support are the Biomex, the lab site echoes, mosquitoes, and more. So here let's start with our workflow. So I'm just gonna click here, start workflow. Before I start, I wanna just mention that you can also like add files or any comments or any other relevant metadata that you consider that you wanna add and keep track of on these workflows. And here you can see how everything is connected. So let's start this workflow here. This task is basically for plan the PCRs that we're gonna need and check if we have everything in inventory to run our assembly in the lab. So I'm gonna start a task here. I'm gonna use a DNA assembly report that was generated automatically using the TeselaGen design module. So for doing that, I can just select one here, and this is what's gonna guide me in the PCRs that I need to do. So I have generated this one here, and I'm gonna select this one, and as you can see, this is automatically detecting all of the PCRs that were generated on that assembly report that was generated previously on the design module. You don't need to use the design module to do this. You can also select a plate map or other ways to organize your PCRs, but of course it's way easier and way more efficient to do it directly using the TeselaGen design module. And here we have all of our PCR reactions selected, and it's showing the oligos that we're gonna use, the melting time, melting temperatures, and the templates. Let's keep going. Everything in this plate is previously configured using the assembly report that was generated from before. So I can just keep going. And here, TeselaGen will check in the inventory if we have the corresponding DNA materials that we need to run these PCRs. As you can see, it's showing that we have volume for this sequence here. We also have these oligos in these plates, so we should be fine. We're gonna automate the selection of the samples. You could select manually if you want like a specific to use specific samples, but we do offer some automated sample selections. I'm just gonna use the last modified samples. So everything is selected and everything is in the inventory. So now I'm gonna submit this and go to the next step. So if we, for example, we would have been missing some oligos, in the next step we could have integrated with IDT and generate automatically a DNA order that could be submitted to IDT for ordering those missing oligos. We support multiple vendors, so we work with IDT, with Twist, and we keep adding, and we're talking always with new vendors, so we can keep supporting multiple vendors in our platform. All of them can also be accessed through the Bioshop here. So I'm gonna skip this task because we already saw that we have everything on the inventory. So I'm gonna go into running the PCRs. I just start the task, and as you can see, everything here is pre-selected, and this is because of how workflows are integrated. All of these tools or steps, you can run them by themselves as a standalone, but as you can see, it's very convenient to generate these workflows that you can run in your lab and automate everything. So we have everything selected for us automatically, so we just make sure that everything is good. We continue. We define the volumes that we want to transfer on these plates, and we just keep going. And then a PCR worklist will be generated. Until now, the inventory in the TeselaGen platform hasn't been updated, so we need to run the PCR, and after we execute the worklist, the inventories, the volumes, the positions, everything will be updated. So we see that everything is looking okay, and we just generate the worklist here. After we have the worklist, we have a few options for this. One is we can from here export it to any of the any liquid handlers that you might want to use, or we can run them manually. If you don't have a lab robot, it's okay, you can just run it manually from here. So you will go to the execute worklist task. We're gonna start it, and you're gonna see that everything is looking good. So as you can see, all of the information of the source plate, it's over here, and then the destination plates is over here, and how much you need to transfer. All of this is automatically generated for you using these tools. This will validate if there's any errors that may prevent the worklist from being executed successfully. But if everything is alright, and you already did the work in the lab, or your liquid handler finished the run, we can just execute the worklist, press execute worklist here, and all of the inventory will be updated on the TeselaGen platform. And we successfully were able to run these PCR reactions. So that's the first steps that we needed for, those are the first steps that we needed for assembling our constructs of interest. And now I'm gonna jump into the actual assembly of those DNA constructs. So I'm gonna come here, same as before, I'm just gonna start the task. I'm gonna select the assembly report that has my DNA constructs that I wanna build in the lab. I'm gonna select the same one that I was using before. I'm gonna, in this case, I want to use all of the assembly pieces because I wanna build all of the constructs that I have on the assembly report. I'm gonna select all of the constructs because I wanna build all of them. And we're gonna continue. As you see, there's some that we already have in the inventory, but there are some others that we don't have already. So TeselaGen will keep track of all of that information for you. So when we have selected the constructs that we want to build, we're gonna go to our next task, which is basically planning the assembly reaction. So it will check that we have all of our inputs, so all of the PCR output that we generated before, and it's gonna see if we have everything ready to build our constructs in the lab. If needed, you could from here upload additional assembly pieces, but as you see, we have everything good to go. So we're just gonna go and press next. I'm gonna do this on a generic 96 well plate. I'm gonna generate a barcode for this new plate that will have our assembled constructs, and I'm gonna apply just the same volume for all of the constructs. So let me use a smaller volume. Sorry, I'm gonna use a smaller volume for our transfers, and now we have everything good to go. We just can continue, and this will generate the work list. So same as before, we executed a couple of steps that generated all of our planning for assembling these constructs, and we've finalized generating a work list that you can execute manually, or you can export it to your liquid handling equipment. I'm just gonna go here, make sure everything is looking good, and I'm gonna execute the work list to update the TeselaGen platform with all of the corresponding position, new plates that we have generated, and volumes, etc. So that's how we run a workflow on TeselaGen. But it might happen that, for example, you would like to, after you have your DNA construct, you would like to do some microbial transformation with those constructs. You have a few ways on doing this. One would be, as I mentioned before, we have a bunch of tools or tasks that you can run standalone, and you could, for example, look for the microbial transformation tool here, launch it, and run it independently. We could select the plate that had the finalized constructs that we generated before. So we could generate this plate here as the input constructs that we want, and then we could select our microbial material here, and we could just use this standalone tool to generate a work list that then we can upload to our liquid handler equipment or execute it manually. But of course, it's more convenient, as I mentioned before, to add this into a workflow. So for doing that, what you will do, you will go up here into settings, scroll down where it says workflow definitions, and we're gonna create a new workflow definition for our lab that can help us add like new tools. So in this one, I'm gonna add a microbial transformation step. As you can see, we can't edit this one because This one is already being used in the lab, so what we can do is duplicate this one, and I'm gonna call it DNA assembly PCR DNA assembly ordering and transformation workflow. I'm gonna include it in my lab, and now this will generate for me a workflow definition, and I'm gonna add at the end, I'm gonna add my microbial transformation task. So now instead of running the workflow and then going into the tools and do it like all of this in a disconnected way, I can condense everything in one standardized workflow that we can run in the lab automatically and more efficient, and following like our lab's protocols and processes. So let me look for the transformation tool. I'm just gonna add the transformation tool, and as you see, this will automatically suggest you the execute work list, because as I mentioned before, to update the system you need to execute the work list. So this will generate the work list for you, but you need to execute the work list. So let's add those two tasks into our workflow. Okay, so now it says that we have everything. So you remember the previous workflow would have ended here in DNA assembly reaction planning and execute work list. Now we added an extra 2 steps to our workflow, and here you can select that the inputs for this one comes from the previous plates that are generated on the previous task. So I'm gonna select the plates that are generated on the execute work list, which will have the assembled DNA constructs. That way, when a user runs this workflow, this will be already pre-selected for them automatically. And we're gonna leave that execute work list task here. So when we check that everything is ready, you can see that there's like there's a notification telling me that the output, the work list output, is not being linked to any tools, any execute work list tool. So what I also wanna do before leaving here, I'm gonna link the output work list from this tool into this one, to the execute work list. So I will choose the microbial transformation work list here, and everything looks good. There's no warnings, and it looks ready to be published on our platform. So we're gonna publish this workflow to make it available for everyone at the team, and so they can use it and run it freely. And now next time someone wants to run a workflow like this in the lab, they will just go back into workflows, workflow run, new workflow run, let's call it demo workflow with transformation. Let's unselect that, and here we can see that we have our workflow definition that we previously updated just a moment ago. So I will just select this here, press launch workflow, and as you can see, now it's basically the same workflow, but we have these 2 steps that we added before. Also, if you go back into workflows runs, you can see the status of our workflow. So you can see that this workflow was completed, this one is being run, so it's in progress, and this one hasn't been started. So you can resume workflows whenever needed, basically. So in this case, I could open here and I could see that this workflow, it's on the run PCR step. So we could just resume it from here if we want to. So that's a general overview of the TeselaGen Build Module. As you can see, it allows you to manage your inventory, generate workflows that you can automate in the lab and your team can execute. And also it connects with all of the TeselaGen modules. So you can, from the design module, you can generate your DNA assembly reports that you can use as protocols for assembling the DNA constructs that you want on the lab. Use that as an input for a workflow, and then automate the whole DNA assembly process, having in track all of your inventory information and making sure that everything is working properly and orderly in your lab, and all of the information and data is being handled correctly. So thank you for watching this quick overview of the TeselaGen Build demo. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us over our website, over email, or we're gonna be happy to help you with anything that you may need, want, or any questions or doubts. Thank you very much.